And hello and welcome to Agile World Hot Topics. You're right, Carl?
I am now that we have hidden my bloopers from the last 4 attempts to start this show. Yeah.
Now that you said there's bloopers, I'm going to have to release the bloopers at some point. I love good bloopers. But today is our Hot Topic session. And we've got my good friend, Darren. Hey, mate, how you doing?
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yes, very happy to be here, and I hope what I say resonates with some people.
Oh, definitely will. Well, we're actually, we're going to hand it over to you because you've got actually something special to share. So I'll let you get started.
All right, okay. So let me share my screen. Let me just make sure this comes through. Okay, you should be looking at a Miro board with that familiar first page of the Agile Manifesto. Can you see that?
Do you think they were all pixelated at the time, or is it something they did after they wrote the manifesto?
I think it's art form, but I tell you what, though, when you try to print this out, it does take time.
Do you know what I've never understood? And I know this might be slightly off topic, but with all the technology we have and the graphics, the media, they still have just kept it looking really, I might shoot myself in the foot here, shoddy. But I understand that it works. It's what
simple.
It is in the tin. It's simple.
I'm trying to think who it was. Was it
the master of wikis?
No, there was a website, I think that had either Steve Jobs or the Microsoft guys single web page, and it was a picture. And he did that because he just didn't want to interact with people online. So if it works, it works. I mean, it's you know, and this wasn't the main purpose. This was the afterthought, wasn't it? That actually created the galvanization, which is really quite interesting. Anyway, back to Darren.
Sorry, Darren.
But I find this fascinating. I didn't even know that this thing existed until 2010. That's when the word agile first entered my vocabulary, and I was asking all those basic questions. Well, is Scrum agile? Is agile Scrum? But I really went into a deep dive, and I learned just how big this thing is. Incredibly broad, incredibly deep. And I was always fascinated by the opening word, we. And everybody we don't gloss over, but we talk about individuals and interactions, but what does that actually mean at a big and a micro level? So I started to dig around. I came up with a one-liner a while ago, which is, it seems to be that that what we seek to accomplish is bending the work and the organization onto the human being, because trying to bend the human being onto the work and the organization wasn't working out quite so well. We can't change DNA. So it's about working with human nature, not against it. And of course, when we go through these agile coaching conversations, and we learn more about what is agile, what is coaching, what is it we're actually doing, leadership development, people development. We talk about journeys that people go through. That just absolutely fascinated me. And the more I delved into it, the more I realized I didn't know. The more I got to know, the more I realized I didn't know. Just like what Socrates would say 2,500 years ago. I would ask big questions like this: who are we? Where are we? When are we? Why are we? How are we? There's just big nebulous questions to try to land it. I started to get some interesting. I just realized that I'm going to stop screen sharing and share again because I need the sound to come out. So just bear with me a second. I will stop.
That's fine.
And then I'm going to restart.
No, so one thing I've just noticed, every question you ask is we. And it all starts with W as well. But every single question you were asking in those little bubbles had we in it.
Yeah,
Not
and there's also the I as
not-
well.
Yeah, but we. I like that. Sorry, it's just something I just picked up on.
So
I was doing lift music, but
you were doing
What list do you
I was
go
being
in?
helpful.
But yeah, just to pick up on that. So who am I? You know, where am I? You know, this can get singular. This can get plural. What is out there? What does out there mean? You know, and I started to hunt for those boundaries. I do like this, which I started to learn about. Alan Watts, he's a modern day philosopher. He died sadly 1973, but his voice lives on popular platforms like YouTube. And he would talk of a whirlpool. He would say humans are pattern recognizing creatures. And he would talk of a whirlpool. And he said, you can talk about the whirlpool that was at the base of this mountain as in your childhood 20 years ago. And you can go and revisit it and point to the same whirlpool. But of course, it's not the same whirlpool. There's that old saying that a man cannot walk through the same river twice, for it's not the same river. And then you can extend it and say, and it's not the same man. Oh, I like this. But it got me hunting for. So how is it that we can say that's a whirlpool or that's the whirlpool, even though it's never the same whirlpool from moment to moment? And I think it was Alan who says it's because we recognize patterns. And this made sense to me because if we were all to hold up we can all look at each other and say we're all humans, we've all got hands. But if you zoom in on the hand, you've got unique fingerprints. Zoom in further, you've got unique DNA. Just keep zooming in. And I started to think about this, but somehow we get to a level of abstraction where it's a hand and it's a pattern. So that was the first thing
so you're kind of hitting off cognition.
Yeah, perception. So this is where this chap, so a friend of mine, because I wanted to really deep dive into what is going on. So I attended a couple of conferences, and I was at a Craig Larman conference, and I said something in response to a question. And I had a tap on the shoulder saying, what was that you just said? And it was about the burning platform. You know, they haven't yet found their burning platform. And we went to have a beer afterwards. Turns out she's a neurologist. Who's a brain learning expert. I thought, oh, right, I am all over you like a rash. So we spent some time at Imperial College and just learning about how the brain learns. And she even invited me to this seminar from a professor of, I think it was neuroscience at the time. And he put this 1943 quote on screen from, what's his name? Schrödinger, Erwin Schrödinger.
Yeah.
How can the events of space and time, which take place within the spatial boundary of a living organism, be accounted for by physics and chemistry? That was the opening slide. So, okay, go on, you've got me. And the room was filled with these neurologists and data scientists and the machine learning experts. And it just went through the mathematics of what's going on. It's called the Markov blanket. That was fascinating me. I thought, yeah, we're just a learning system, a massive learning system. So we got pattern recognizing creatures. We're a massive learning system. And then she put me in touch with this gentleman, Professor Anil Seth, that she says is a true scientist. He's cutting edge. He's building a body of knowledge on the theory of consciousness. I thought, well, I'd like all this because 100 years ago, we were trying to integrate physics and philosophy. And there's actually a book that is called Physics and Philosophy, written by a scientist. I don't recall his name. But humanity's onto this. Anyway, I watched a handful of his videos. This is I just want to play this portion of the video, just see what happens. I'll fall silent, and then I'll stop it when I'll come back again. That's absolutely fascinating how the brain can pick up these little bits and color in between the dots. And of course, what do we see when we encounter other people? We start to realize that maybe what I'm seeing is not the same as what somebody else is seeing. There's another couple of popular YouTubers. One is called Vsauce, and he put a YouTube video up. It says, "When we look at a red strawberry, are we seeing the same red?" And it even has terms in Philly. We don't know. Anil goes on. It's either in this video or in another video. He says, "There's no lights on in the brain, in the skull. What we're perceiving is the input from electrical impulses. Apparently, color does not exist in the outside world, on the outside of our sense-making apparatus, but we perceive color." And he says the brain, what we're experiencing is a controlled hallucination. We all are. So then I started to think about these 7.9 billion little dots on this speck of dust called planet Earth, all experiencing controlled hallucinations. And of course, the universe is much bigger than these little dots called humanity. And it says, and when those hallucinations agree, that's what we call reality. So we can all point to this and say, that's a pencil. So that's where the hallucinations are agreeing, but they don't always agree. And that's where I think that's incredibly important when we work with other people. So bringing this back into the agile world, I think that's incredibly important about the individuality of the individuals. We cannot see through their eyes. We don't know what they've seen, what they've gone through. Every single human being from birth to present moment has got a very unique timeline with various interactions. Sometimes the timelines cross. Sometimes I will meet you, but then we'll go our separate ways. I'll do some things and then we'll meet again, like we are today. So these individuals and these interactions between these individuals, I think is fascinating. And when you study the whole enterprise coaching stuff, you learn of, it starts to explore this called Gestalt psychology. Essentially, the universe, according to you, is actually rendered entirely within you. You can think about the moon in the sky. That's completely within you. We can look at the same moon, but that's completely within you. So we're all carrying universes around, 7.9 billion universes around with us. And of course, when we meet, those universes merge and we get differences of opinion. It can rise to tensions if we don't understand that actually different people are very different. So how do we interact? And that brought me on to this.
I've got some examples, because there's these things that you can see online as an example where everything's written backwards or the wording is discombobulated, but because you know how that word actually looks,
that's
you
a
can
Gestalt
actually read
principle.
it. Yeah. And then the other one is, I got a good example of me and Carl. I don't want to use the word argue about colors. Like our next series color, the color I feel it is very different to the color Carl feels it is. So,
well, that's because we don't see the same color, and we never will. You know, my retina design and construct is different from yours.
I do understand now. I don't like your colors compared to my colors. I think my colors are way better than your colors, but just confirming that. Sorry, okay. Darren, I don't think that my colors are better.
So I think the interesting thing with Gestalt, he didn't just sort of define a notion of separate universes. He also said that there are a bunch of commonalities that drive us towards a common set of agreed meanings and interaction points that positively say something is a certain direction. And which I think is really interesting as well. Is just as we are diversely different by every unique person, by every experience they have, this is, when you said about Agile, this is why I absolutely ask that every project I work on creates a glossary index or a treasury index of meaning before we start. Because if we don't have that before we start, halfway through, people will be fighting over what a sprint is, because their experience of a sprint is 6 weeks long, someone else is 2 weeks long, or it might be 3 months long if it's a mainframe sprint. So we just need to have that. We need to have commonly agreed sets. So you showed a pen or a pencil. So we agree that that's a pencil because it had a rubber on one end, so it had other indicators. But it looked kind of green-blue to me, but it may have looked green to you, and it may have looked different to someone else. So we agree on the pattern, but we don't agree on the detail. That's really interesting. Sorry.
This now you see why I like this so much. The other thing as well, just to touch on this, 2006. There's a book which is called Leadership and the New Science, and it actually is referenced by Lissa Adkins' Coaching Agile Teams book, which came 4 years later in 2010. So I read this, and again, it was talking about that merging of philosophy and physics and the unknowns and fields. It talks about organizational fields, which you and I might say vibes. They're giving off a good vibe, they're giving off a bad vibe, or good energy or negative energy. We can't quite describe why this is happening or what it is, but it's there. Culture, we might call it culture, we might call it mindsets. And this is what I can't remember whether I came up with this line or whether it was something which I read somewhere. I really can't remember. But work, it might have been from that 2006 book, but work is done through a web of healthy relationships, not just meticulous planning. And I found this image online, and I just thought, well, that's like, we've got a neural net in our heads. And when you have two neural nets talking to each other, you've got a super system of neural nets. So with nodes of the individuals and communication pathways between them. I thought, and this 2006 book actually had in print, which I was started to come to the conclusion of myself, which is, it's no accident that the word organization and organism has the same root. A human system is a complex, adaptive, learning organism that flexes and morphs and adapts.
So I would add to your nodes polarity.
Yeah.
Because you can be connected to someone and have a communication pathway, but that may be a negative pathway. And from another person, it may be a positive pathway. Now, the negative pathway doesn't mean to say that you don't absorb the knowledge. It just means that you absorb it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think polarity might be a nice add to your model.
Yeah. And when you we talk about the Maslow need of psychological safety. If we have these healthy relationships, we can have conversations like that. I saw there's a YouTuber which has caught my eye. He's a doctor, Dr. Derek Muller, and he goes by the YouTube channel Veritasium. And it's amazing just to see how he will openly have these types of conversations that you and I might be, oh, don't go and talk to this person because they're off the wall, you know. But when you get to this level of understanding, you can have these rich conversations like this. He would talk to another popular YouTuber. I can't remember his name. I can't remember. It's the guy that did the backwards bicycle, where Destin, that's the name of the person, said, "Can I train my brain to ride the backwards bicycle, where you turn the handlebars one way and the wheel goes the other way?" And he observed that his child was able to pick it up in a very short amount of time. It took Destin 8 months, I think he said. And he references neuroplasticity, how we learn. But so we're all learning, and he was able to teach his brain how to overcome its autonomous system, which we use when we're balancing on bicycles. And then when he tried to go back to a normal bicycle, he actually struggled. It took him about 45 minutes, and then it just clicked. And I found that video absolutely fascinating as well. Challenge your cognitive bias, which of course, what did we come across? But if we can just talk to each other, be nice to each other. Socrates talks about this with Socratic questioning. My question is not to fight with you. My question is to clarify and elicit information. Genuinely curious, humble inquiry. And that, I think, helps this happen inside organizations.
So that's quite a fundamental change, though. I mean, that not seeking dominance in a conversation is a fundamental change. Is that one of your core hot topics within mindsets, that actually there's a different way of engaging?
Yeah, in the professional coaching, the professional agile coaching boot camps, which references professional coaching, it does talk about showing up as an equal. So it's not about dominance, it's not about subordination. Show up as an equal. They even used a one-liner: be the person you want the world to be. You can't get much more equal than that. Yes. Yeah. Show up as an equal. We are equal people.
100%. I fully believe that anywhere in the world it should be. It makes no difference what your level is or how much money you actually have, or even your age. Treat people the way you want to be treated yourself.
But also, you just don't know where the next amazing idea is going to come from, and if it comes from the back streets of Calcutta, from a child that just had a brilliant idea, or if it comes from Harvard graduates and you're not a graduate, why would you disallow that wonderful idea just because of circumstance? I mean, that's insane. Yet there are people who, I've seen it on LinkedIn, they're anti people with qualifications. I'm not anti qualification, I'm not pro qualification, I'm interested in people. And what is it that you bring? What those things tell me what happened before, what's happening now.
100%. So is this something you feel that within the agile world we still need to improve on? We still need to think about this?
So from personal observations and from conversations I have with fellow professionals, we do see people with these undesirable behaviors. There's something out there called spiral dynamics, where I think it's Dr. Don Beck, which builds on a body of research from somebody else whose name I can't remember. But they say about the journey that a human being will make from birth to present moment is roughly the same journey that humanity's gone through, which makes sense, because if you've got this little thing, this little learning system bringing in all the data from the senses, it's probably going to be learning the same thing that the parents have gone through, and their parents and their parents before that, and so on and so on and so on. That fascinates me. There are people that are on their life journey that still exhibit certain undesirable behaviors. They seek to dominate rather than seek the truth and respect and equality, and respect the individuality of the individuals and healthy interactions between those individuals. They haven't got there yet. We're not born with this knowledge. We're not born with this insight. What we are born with is a sense of safety, and that manifests itself in our emotions. So you can ask questions like, how do you feel today? Oh, I feel happy. You can see people happy. But you can also see people quite reserved. Okay, something's going on. They may not know how to articulate it or want to articulate it, but just look after this person. Don't frown upon them. Just treat them as an equal, because they are an equal member of the human species, and have just as much right to be on this planet as I do. So with that view, I think if we can somehow just get along better with each other, the world will be a much better place.
And I think it's a really handy trait to have, to kind of understand people's behaviors, and being able to understand if someone's behaving in a certain way, it's possibly because of this. And especially when it comes to coaching and training, as an example, understanding how people take information in, understanding if they're behaving in a certain way, are they actually taking the information, are they finding it boring? It helps you to be able to interact with those people better. And especially when it comes to jobs like we do, that's one main thing we need to do, is be able to have that interaction.
I'm not sure that I could ever actually get inside someone's head, and I'm not sure I want to be in there, to be quite honest with you.
No, but you
I think
can
what I'd like
certain behaviors.
What I'd like is some indicators of where we are in the conversation. Did did they hear? Well, what did they hear when I spoke? I think it's probably the better terms of reference rather than what did they hear what I wanted them to hear. What did so one of the classic learning techniques is you talk to someone and then you ask them to speak it back to you in their own words, for you to understand whether or not they can whether or not they've understood what you've said, and then you ask them to extrapolate it, to put it into a different circumstance, to understand if they have worked out the mechanism in whatever it is you've just said. And I think that's kind of missing from the corporate world. You know, there's this assumption that we all know how it works. Well, actually, we don't. There's so many different fads of organizational construct and business ways of working that actually, who knows what people think is best or a good way to work.
And that's the nature of so who knows what's best. Knefin talks about this in a complex, certainly a complex adaptive system, which is what the world is, what we are individually. The solution isn't known. I mean, the species, we've been around for 100 to 250,000 years, and we're still blowing each other up and killing each other. It's quite shocking how we treat one another and other life forms and the planet in general. So I've always said over a beer, we're still stuck in the dark ages, but we are getting better. We are learning, and it does take time. Paradigm shifts do take time. That's what my neurologist friend would say. So she understands how the brain learns, and she's told me how the brain learns. And I says, why don't we see these techniques being used in our primary schools? And she would say, because it takes generations to establish a paradigm shift, which makes sense, because we return to what is comfortable and what is known to us. And we sometimes don't know the unknown. We look out into the fog of understanding. We think, I don't get this, but I do get this. So I'm going to stick with this for now, because over there might be dragons and I might show myself up to be foolish. And that's the other thing as well, which would probably help. The ability to say, I don't know. Don't try and make it up. Just say, I don't know.
So you're still indicating that all of this is benign, and that there is no agenda, and that no one has gains value from this disparate humanity, and us all not being aligned and being aware. Whereas I look at the world and think that actually there's a huge amount of financial value in keeping us all unaware of how things work, and being unaware of a wider picture to only focus on our own needs. I mean, not conspiracy theorists, because this is not a conspiracy theory. This is how it actually works. So, you know, we as cultures have realized that we've had to take some positive steps and change things. Why not change this also?
It does take time, though. It does take time. I think there will always be. I like some of the I like all the Dan Brown books. One of the Dan Brown books talks about the topic is Freemasonry, and the whole theme is about this Masonic stuff. But what was in the book was an interesting line. It says, the secret is knowing how to die. And I thought, yeah, because you live on after your life by the memories you leave behind in those that still live afterwards. Do you want to be remembered as a good person or as a bad person? It is a sad fact of life at the moment that people do pass on, and they're remembered for bad stuff. And some of these people are remarkably financially successful, but were they humanely successful? No. And then you got poor people that may be the poorest person in the graveyard, but they are amazing people, and we listen and we learn, and they might have written things, or we talk about them for generations. These people that lived hundreds, thousands, 7,000 years ago. So it is, but it's slow progress. Evolution is slow. It is slow, and there's always going to, for the foreseeable future, certainly within our lifetimes, we're still going to encounter these undesirable behaviors that we just have to be patient with and see if we can get them to see things in a different way. Is our way right? So that's made a massive assumption. Is being nice to each other actually the right thing? I think it is. It feels like it's the right thing to do because of that, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If that's across all the belief systems, it's
there's a common
I
theme.
think it's the wrong thing to be. It's called the golden rule. Be the person you want the world to be. I can't seem to find fault with that.
So if you were, actually, I'm going to ask you the question. How do you think we can actually improve, especially when it comes to individuals and interactions? Because it's definitely that there's improvements that are needed. So as a question, how do you think we should improve, or how can we improve?
Well, I can only answer from my own me, which is my own level of understanding, which, and I'm not arrogant enough to think I know more than the next person. I know different things, but I think we can all learn from each other. Maybe that's the clue to the answer. An individual is an individual, but two people, there's that saying that the two people together, the and between one and two, so between this person and that person, that makes that collective more powerful, better, whatever better means, than the sum of the individual parts. And we see this coming through teams, where if we can get a team playing nicely together and aligned with purpose and healthy relationships and just helping each other out, as it says in the opening sentence, we are helping others do it. That's the opening sentence of the Agile Manifesto. If we could just help each other out and support each other, which is the fifth principle, and realize that different people are different. We are equal, but we're not the same. We are different, but we're equal. I think that's a starting point. The other thing as well, which I've been playing with in my head, is, so I've arrived at this kind of, okay, let's play nicely together. Life is a delicate balance of give and take, ebb and flow. Sometimes I will give more, sometimes I need more. That's just a natural ebb and flow of the human experience. I think and I'm just enjoying smelling the roses and enjoying the flowers. So I just am. I be a human being. Okay, so I've just arrived at this place in my journey of just beingness. What's the next step? A human becoming, and I don't know what that looks like yet.
Still trying to become a human. That's really intriguing. That is really intriguing.
I used to call my blog trainee human.
Because you're training to be a human.
Yeah, all my life I'll be training to be a human.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you know, this has really been really interesting. Thank you very much for this. Have you got any more that you want to go through?
No, that's it. It's a very big topic, and I'm still learning.
And
the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And now I've come to the conclusion I know nothing.
So what do you want to do with this? So it's a hot topic. Do you want to engage with the community? Do you want to have a wider discussion?
I think I like. I had a talk with Simon Powers, the founder of Adventures with Agile, and in 2014 he just said, I need to share. And if you look back across the thousands of years of all the successful rituals that have been set up, it is about sharing with each other. I think meeting other people and sharing this insight and having these rich discussions about what is this all about, how do we work together? What problems are we facing? How might we address those problems? Just to share, because one individual cannot possibly have all the answers, but a collective of individuals, collective intelligence, I think that's incredibly, and a respectful collective intelligence is incredibly safe, enriching, and good for humanity.
Okay.
And I
Well,
think this would be a really, really good topic to open people's minds. So absolutely perfect. Carl, have you got anything else you'd like to add?
well, just going to say, I think we have a safe space already with the meetup group. So maybe we put on a meetup to discuss this, because I think, you know, every company under the sun wants Agile now, and they all want to have mindset that goes with Agile. But actually, if the mindset that goes with Agile is not of Agile, but of us, then I think that there's an extra dimension there. And I think that we need more minds on this to see how that dimension might work.
100%. Also, we do actually have a friend in the business who does the neurological surveys. Think sales. I think it might
That's a
be
good
good if we
idea.
can invite him, because I think he'll be able to add something to this as well. Well, thank you very much, Darren. It's always been amazing speaking to you, and we'll see you at the next meetup group for the extension of this hot topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.